Hi, this is Kevin Pulaski from Paradise Found Studio, and today I'm going to be talking to Mickey Wells. And now, in an earlier episode, we talked about his work and his influences, and today he's going to take us through the process of casting in bronze and sculpting. It's very fascinating, so let's get into that. So, Mickey, thanks for joining me again.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Through last time, we talked about your work. Went through the project in Groom, Texas, St. John's, Indiana, but I'm really curious about your sculpting process and casting process. So I was wondering if you could take us through that.
Certainly. When I start a new project, I usually get a model, dress them in the attire, take pictures. I sculpt from those pictures. I just go around the model, taking pictures, because in sculpting, as in painting, you're freezing a moment of time. I start a maquette, and then from that, I make a mold of it, pour it in wax, and then scan it with my 3D scanner. And with that digital information, I load it into a program, and I enlarge the sculpture to the height that they're wanting. It also helps me get to the foam quicker. You know, years ago, before I had the scanner and the CNC machine, I made a 1/2-inch pipe armature and then basically cut the blue foam into pieces and glued it on and shaped it and then put clay on. But that would take about 200 pounds of clay. I can do a small sculpture, scan it, and then put clay on that and use 20, 25 pounds of clay. So it's a huge advantage, but it's also easier to change. You know, if you have a 1/2-inch pipe armature welded together in the way you think they want it, and then they change something, you've got the Sawzall out, you're cutting. Once I get the CNC work done, I actually paint it with a paint the same color as the foam, in case the clay's thin somewhere, and then I sculpt. That's where all the detail comes in. Once that's approved, coat with many applications a late silicone mold material until it's about a 1/4-inch thick. It has dividers that will be later cut lines. And then with that, I put on plaster with hemp to be the supporting structure or the mother mold for that silicone. And then when the plaster is finished, I take all that off and then cut the rubber silicone off the figure. And now I've got an exact copy of that figure in reverse, is one way to look at it. And then I put the rubber back into the mold. It's got all register marks, so it all fits in the exact same way. And then I paint that with wax to start, to work in every detail with the wax. And I slowly build that wax up till it's about 1/8 inch to 3/16 thick. And I bolt the halves together. I have a thing that'll hold this plaster where I can pour wax into it and roll it around and dump it out to seal those two pieces of wax together and to get it up to about a 1/4-inch thickness. Once that's done, I take the mold off and detail any air bubbles or any detail that I feel needs to be dealt with. That's where it's taking place in the wax. And sometimes that's a very intense process. I mean, it's a lot of work. And then it's sprued, which is adding vents and gates to it that are in wax.
So everything that is the wax, the thickness of the wax, the details, that's going to be replaced with the bronze.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so when you look at and this is a dumb question, but when you look at a bronze statue, it's not solid bronze, right? So that wax is going to be replaced with the bronze. So that thickness, you said, I think 1/4 inch, that's going to be the thickness of the bronze itself.
Right. Whatever the wax is, that will be the thickness of the bronze. Once it's sprued and vented, then it goes into what we refer to as the investment room, which is a room that has a ceramic shell material that the wax is lowered into. It sticks to it, and then a silica wax or silica sand is sprinkled onto it, a really fine sand for the first 3 coats. and it's dipped and then sands put on, dipped and then sands put on. The fine, the medium, and then I go with the coarse. Since I cast so large, my molds, that investment material on the wax needs to be about anywhere from 3/4 to an inch thick. And then when all the dips are completed, it's taken to my furnace and raised into the furnace. I've got a very large burnout. Burn all that wax out of it, where now that shell is hollow. And once that shell is completely void of wax, and it tempers, because that's the tempering process for that shell as well, for that ceramic. It's like fire and ceramic. And after that point, they're checked for cracks, if there are any cracks from wax trying to get out too fast. And then it goes, this is usually the next day, it goes into a preheat furnace. My metal's in the crucible, getting hot, and I'm adding ingots to it. I preheat the shells to about 1500 degrees. And when my metal is at temperature, I usually pour my metal out around 2100 to 21.5, depending on what I'm pouring. And I take the shells out and I have them in a cage, and I lift the whole cage out of another furnace, set it down, and then I pour the bronze into that shell once it's at the temperature that I want to pour. So, and it's usually, depending on weather, I pour outside. So sometimes you got to pour it fast.
This sounds hazardous. I mean, is this a dangerous process, or is it just so controlled on?
It can be extremely dangerous. Water hits me, there's going to be a huge explosion. And when I have people that come and watch me, because I always tell them is, if I say run, run, because I will run over you if you're in my way. Because if there's a problem, we need to get out of here. After that's cast, I use a sledgehammer to get it started. I use air hammers. And once all that's off, we have the vents and the gates that were earlier wax that are now bronze. So those have to be cut off. After the shelf is knocked off, I dress each piece, try to clean them up. And then because I do it in pieces like the Moses piece, then it's welded together with the TIG with using a bronze silica rod. That's the same material that I'm casting with. But then that weld has to be ground and polished and flow into the next piece where it's invisible. The Moses, for instance, I did the lower half, and then I did the upper half with one arm gone, one side gone because it was so wide, and welded that together.
Tablets of Moses, it looks like those are separate pieces that are made of something different. Those aren't cast in bronze. What are those?
Those are marble. I had to make bronze dowel pin and drill holes in the marble from behind where it couldn't be seen, and then everything fit in together, and then epoxy it. And then after the whole piece is put together, it's sandblasted for uniformity. That gets it all bright and shiny in one color, and then it's patinaed. And the patina is the oxidation process. It's the color process. And there's different colors you can put on them, or just the traditional kind of brownish. We used to call it cowboy brown, and that's all achieved with chemicals. After I patina a sculpture, I put on 3 coats of a clear material that is similar to the clear they put on cars. I put 3 coats of that on, and then I put a carnauba wax on that as well, protect it from the elements and to protect it from moving it and all that, so it doesn't affect the finish and it maintains its color. All bronze sculptures will get darker, but if they're sealed in and protected, it takes a longer time.
So Mickey, thanks for taking the time and going through all the process with us.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this walking through the casting and sculpting process with Mickey today. If you want to see more of his work, his website is below, and you can see my own website, Paradise Found Studio. We did do another video where we talked about his work, his influence. So that's really fascinating stuff. So please check that out. If you like this video, please hit like and please subscribe. We really appreciate it. We're trying to build our subscriber base. Thanks.